Flomishkaram and Flomastay. My name is Sumet Chatterjee from the Flow Zone Academy, and I'm a flow state specialist, so I'm here to help you feel your best and perform your best. Today we're talking all about how to discover your own avatar, your own archetype. You want to be the living archetype, okay? Now the cool thing about archetypes is that they were first introduced by a Swiss man named Carl Jung, okay? And this particular psychologist explored that different people's psyches hold these different archetypes or symbols. And that these archetypes are impersonal aspects and concepts. So they function almost as programs in our minds, okay, in the collective mind. So you being connected to your greatest self, your higher self, your monad, your inner star, your authentication, right, your inner purpose, you want to understand that in order to do that, you're going to have to go through a couple of things. Number one, you got to disassociate with this understanding that you have to completely remove your ego. Because your ego is what actually guides you on the path. It is like the vehicle to get you to point A to point B. It is the one that chooses between the crossroads, okay? And so without that function, we cannot actually actualize or activate our greatest or higher selves, okay? A lot of people think it's complete eradication. I think the Dilts model shows a beautiful understanding of the ego and the soul working together as a team to construct and create the greatest version of you. And that's what I'm inspired by, at least. I want to understand that the theme of the universe is unification, which we understood from me channeling Archangel Raziel yesterday. Call him Granddad, okay? Call him Granddad because he has that wise old man energy that just is right for the right time, you know. And yesterday was an incredibly right time. We went through a lot of healing. If you want that recording, definitely shoot me a message and I will send it over to you. If you're in the Depth program, you get it for free. If you want that particular transmission, then just reach out to me and just tell me I want the Granddad Raziel transmission. Having said that, I also want to plug that we are going to Costa Rica the end of this month, mid-month. And if you are at all curious, just come on down, okay? If you're in the US, it's gonna be easier for you to get there, okay? For me, I'm coming all the way from India, very long flight, very expensive, okay? But I'm doing this for our path. I'm doing this for us as a team, because I know that myself and my business partner, Ryan G, who work as a collective, as founders of Primal Sutra, we've decided to be trailblazers, to be pioneers in this new field of spiritual evolution, which is what the world currently needs. Especially a lot of young men are not finding that vivacity, you know. A lot of men are 30 and 40 years old and still a virgin, okay, nowadays. So it's very, very important to understand that, you know, slowly people are becoming more introverted, more stuck in their own shells. Okay, and that is a result of also their persona. Now, the persona is your social mask. It's the version that you show the world, not the version that you are all alone in your own room, you know, goofy lights, a little bit strange. You're not that version. The persona is like someone asks you, how are you? You say, I'm good, thank you. You know, it's just an autopilot response. That's the persona. And that persona is almost like this social mask, this super ego, this understanding of like, it's the substructure of society, you know, imprinting onto you as well. So you gotta be very, very aware of what movies you're watching, what music you're listening to, etc., etc. But we have this archetype particularly called the priest beast. Now, what is so interesting about the priest beast, okay? Too much priest and you start disconnecting. Too much priest, not enough beast, you won't be able to handle the fire of the world. Okay, you won't be able to handle the challenges that might come your way. That's why you need that beast. Once you have that beast within you, you understand that that can actually activate the priest and vice versa. Understand that if you understand using this Primal Sutra archetype of the priest beast, you will understand that you cannot be lopsided. You got to understand, I have a persona, I have an authentic and true self, I've got a shadow, I've got a golden shadow, and I've got a mirror self, or a reflection, okay? This reflection is basically hemisphere synchronization, balancing both, coming back to the middle point, being in zero, entering the void and staying there, so we can temporarily dissolve our egos in order to transform and create. You see, we can manifest by allowing ourselves to actually create, to be conscious, okay? You see, what's the difference between consciousness and something like sentience, okay? Consciousness is more so I am self-aware, okay? I have this understanding that I am here and I am creating and I am constructing consciousness. I'm going into my imagination. That is also part of the conscious experience. But animals, however, let's say a dog, they're not so self-aware, are they? They're just living with their basal animal instincts. So you need your ego as the consciousness, okay, to control your animal instincts. So an animal would be more so sentient, okay? They are activating through their senses. And that is something that we need as well, okay? However, let's not confuse consciousness and sentience. They're two different things. And we've got to understand how to operate this, this flesh vehicle, this metaphysical meat suit, per se. How do we become better? How do we evolve? How do we shed the layers like a Naga snake and become a more evolved version of ourselves, okay? So here is kind of a model that I've understood, okay? So here is what I call the choice point. Usually it comes back to your center, your heart, where you're looking from. It is the question of where are my thoughts coming from, where this is like the monad, right? It is that inner choice point, okay, the crossroads. It is your consciousness, right? It is your egoic expression. And of course, there's the unconscious, all this white space around it. But start to understand that this point is going into what? A hemisphere synchronization or a reflection. It is going into the shadow self and the golden shadow self, okay, also known as the power self. So as you start to go, and again, if you don't do this work properly, these archetypes are going to be decided upon you based on your past, based on your lineage, based on, different influences from culture, society, basically cultural conditioning, right? And so that's why we need to, first of all, empty the cup, empty both, bring it together, merge it, bring it through here, and then rise up. And then here we have the example of the living higher self, or in this sense, you would be the living archetype. You would have all of these words mixed and unified into one. Logos, telos, ethos, okay, pathos, holos, okay, a holographic universe. So really start to understand that, this is sort of the way to understand this. Now understand, if you are at the choice point, you can choose to focus on the negative, you can choose to focus on the positive as well, right? But you have the choice, you've got to create it, okay? So maybe you feel like, man, life is just completely giving me all this nonsense. But maybe unconsciously you're choosing those instances. Why would we choose bad instances for ourselves? There's many reasons. One of the reasons might be it's very familiar to us to be stuck to that particular frame of mind or environment. It could be that, we have a certain resistance, or we're very triggered or have a pain body attack on certain topics, which can, sometimes the shadow can lead us, swing us to this other side of the golden, right? And this can also swing us to the other side of the shadow, right? So it's kind of like a little bouncy castle right here. Why did I write this? Find them and integrate them in real life. As I started to explore more of Carl Jung's stuff, I started to understand that, it's not necessarily that we always have to go through an inner process of shadow work. People who we meet on our journey of life, who trigger us, who activate us, who make us feel these different things and emotions, that's the perfect dojo for us to do shadow work, because we're actually coming back to that divine reflection, that mirror self, okay? In a relationship, you see the mirror up in other people, right? Where your flaws are, they're being broadcasted into their insecurities and so forth. And so it really gives you a clearer picture on what is the type of person that I'm being and how are they perceiving me different, right? Because your partner may be perceiving you different, somebody else might be perceiving you different, right? And all these different perceptions start to actually form you because perception creates reality. Someone else thinks you're lazy, someone else thinks you're mean, someone else thinks you're a generous person, someone else thinks you're miserly and very, in Bengali we'd say kipte, right? It's just like, keeping all the money to yourself. But we want to reveal to ourselves the path, okay, of human ascension, human enlightenment, whatever you want to call it. We want to go through this process where we slowly start to unravel our truer selves. I don't think I've ever really tapped into this version of me where I'm completely and totally like in it. A lot of people, what they do is they strive for perfection or purity, and they can never really attain it, and so they're constantly stuck chasing this imaginary stuff, right? And it's just this constant like circling. For me, I understand that every day in every way I'm getting better and better, okay? It's a constant evolution for me, so I'm not taking a day off, okay? Even in my day off, it's my day on in a sense, because I am resting and giving this avatar a chance to fully integrate and really learn the lessons, right? Not make the same mistakes over and over again. Really being conscious, using my consciousness to determine my reality, okay? Having that will, having that understanding of momentum that starts building, okay? All of these things are very, very important when it comes down to this playing field of being the living avatar. Now understand that your avatars or your archetypes will decide. What's the difference between avatar and archetype? By the way, avatar is just the form of, that version of your higher self that's very particular in a particular appearance that it might manifest as, whereas an archetype is something, a floating, impersonal, unconscious concept, usually defined by a character or an image, or like a trope almost, in a sense, like a king, warrior, magician, lover. Those are archetypes, right? But let's say you choose the archetype of the lover. Now the lover has some pros and cons, right? Those pros and cons will come in through as you start playing this role of the lover, and you might even get the archetype reacting rather than you reacting at times. This is weird, but I've experienced this, so I'm just letting you know, okay? So like in a moment you randomly get angry, but are you getting angry or is your archetype getting angry? Maybe there's certain parts of you that you haven't met yet, you haven't talked to, and they feel dissatisfied, they feel disconnected from you, and so they keep, feeling bad in a sense, right? There's a resistance, there's a hesitancy, there's a feeling of nervousness, okay, or self-doubt. But that will slowly fade as you start to give it more consciousness or sense of control. Oh, my left eye is hurting. Oh, my knee is hurting. These types of things happen on the spiritual process. You understand they all mean something, and most times, sometimes it's just their body is in pain, okay? It doesn't necessarily have to mean anything. However, in that moment, you understand that there is a pain body attack happening, and once you can get conscious about creating a color for it, a shape around it, an archetype, a character around it, you will start to stack and really step into that, okay? So I will share more secrets like this in the Adepts program as well as the Costa Rica Retreat. Of course, if you're interested, we will help you step into your greatest archetype, the greatest version of yourself, so you can present yourself, but also really embody and feel as that, okay? Not just on the outside world, but really on the inner work. We are masters of inner work, okay? As opposed to, yes, the outer work, we do get the results, but the inner work is where it starts, as within, so without, okay? So we got to understand that, the internal reflects towards the external, okay? So as you start fixing the external, sometimes the internal fixes too. Like, I know that when my room gets cleaner, okay, I feel better, okay, and I start to get more energy and so forth. So it's really according to how you want to create this system for yourself to tap into these avatar switches. I prefer to avatar switch in moments where I feel that there is a complaint or a problem that's showing up in my life, and I don't want to deal with that anymore in my life. I've dealt with it too many times, and I've got to now step into a new character that does not have that problem to begin with, or has less of that problem, or can manage that problem very succinctly and well, etc. Okay, so it's basically your archetype is a response to your suffering. Okay, it's a response to the bad things that are happening. So let's say that, you know, you can't quit a bad habit, you become extremely disciplined in your next archetype upgrade. Okay, and you allow that discipline to override the bad habit. But then you have to do the cleanup work in order to get there, because what if that disciplined person has a golden shadow and a shadow? Okay, what if it has a masculine, feminine? Masculine, feminine polarity work is in that mirror self, the in-between that I showed you, okay? That's why I have the yin-yang right here, right? So as you start connecting with all these three, you'll notice that it manifests in this golden shadow fire. You'll feel this viscerally in your physical body, this inner heat, or this fire, or this ambition, or this momentum, whatever you want to call that. It's like an engine, right? That just keeps burning. It's like that inner fire within you that keeps burning. It's passion, it's life force. It's the, it keeps you moving forward, right? But then you have the subconscious water symbolism, okay, where you have to look through the reflection of the water. You have to go into the dark cave and then go into the water, dig into the water to go on the other side to meet the unconscious, basically, okay? The unconscious aspects, all the hidden aspects that are there, that might still be there. And you want to make use of these things. So let's say you go on a little bit of an inner journey and you find a very strange shaped torch that becomes a flame or something like that. It's very ancient relic, something like that. You go through guided visualization, either guided by yourself or with your higher self or your guides or beings you work with. You just allow them to guide you through this process. And as you're going through this little visualization, you are imagining you're going into this dark cave, you're going into the water, you're diving into the water, you're going in. This is basically an understanding of timeline shifting as well, okay? Which a lot of people, they don't timeline shift, they're like this. So there are different timelines like this, up and then down, okay? So you can timeline shift up, or you can timeline shift down as well, okay? Now what's the difference between going down and going up? One, you're holding on to a very negative frequency in that moment of shift, and so it latches onto that storyline, so it goes with it almost. Now, sometimes I might feel like we're way down here where we could be up here, right? That's okay, everyone has their own journey and process, but basically you want to start building your self-esteem, okay, your self-image, back to a point where you really start to accept yourself, respect yourself more, have more confidence and so forth, right? Emanate yourself gloriously in the world with your charm, with your charisma and so forth. Make it natural for you to do that. So there's many other things and factors that you can do, but I think this understanding this is a baseline. The understanding that I can use my ego to control my inner desires. But what if I can also have the ego and my id, or my desires, on a team together? Okay? And what if I had my highest version of me and my lowest version of me joining hands to meet? Okay? And that is the priest beast. Hard to understand that there's many nuances. It's very multifaceted, this model, right? We can go into many different ways. We understand that stoicism is more like that, you know, that fire that might be broiling inside, but it's very, like, it's maintained. It's a well-constructed furnace, right? Whereas the water is almost like a very flowing energy. It is more so like Taoism, like letting it be, letting it surrender itself. So the surrender and the discipline come together to generate this flow state essence. That's kind of the way that I've understood it. I've explained this concept in many other videos way back, but I post a lot of videos, so of course you can't go through all of them. I highly recommend you check out my 31-day, the only manifestation you'll ever need. I can link it in the description here, but that meditation is going to change your life, bro. Try that for 31 days. You're going to manifest anything, straight up. Just try it, okay? It's very, very potent, and it will shift your beingness. I hope you enjoyed this video today. Have an incredible day. May the flow be with you and stay legendary. We're all gonna make it. May we never be the same again. Us.